Before we start this, I just want to say that I got the coolest cup from Michaels. It's awesome. It's a skull, it's so spooky, it's so seasonally appropriate, and appropriate for this video. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Top 5 Wednesday. I've left the Goodreads group down in the description if you want to check it out. This week's topic is favorite creepy settings. This is just any setting that really creeped you out while you were reading it. I tried to pick settings from books that weren't necessarily horror books because I feel like that's too easy, but one of the ones that's on here is from a horror book, but I couldn't help it because it was just such a spooky setting. Basically, I didn't really have any criteria other than just a setting that was creepy to me in some way, or that, you know, unsettled me more than it should have. So number 5 on my list is Cavewater from The Raven Cycle. It's a creepy forest setting. Some of the creepiest settings are set in forests. It's not even necessarily creepy, it's just unsettling because you're not really sure what it is. It's kind of alive, it's its own thing. People are kind of controlled by it. It's like such a hard thing to wrap your mind around. It's mysterious and there's supernatural elements all through it, and like almost all the creepy stuff in the series happens in Cavewater, so. And just because of that mysterious dark element, I just find Cavewater pretty unsettling. Number 4 is The Attic from Jane Eyre. And spoilers if you've never read Jane Eyre and you don't want it spoiled for you, just skip ahead until you don't see this book in my hand anymore. So, I mean, this entire book is pretty dark and kind of messed up. And the creepiest thing about it is that there's this guy who just keeps his mentally ill wife in an attic and doesn't tell anybody about her and is about to get married to another girl when the truth finally comes out. And that's just terrifying to me, that there's just this woman being locked in an attic and just shoved there, forgotten there, and nobody talks about her. And like she's there for the whole novel, but you don't really know until like near the end. And then when she manages to escape, she basically sets the house on fire. This entire book is pretty creepy, but I always just found that moment when you found out that there's like this woman in the house that he's not talking about really creepy. Number 3 is The Forest from In the Forest Dark and Deep by Carrie Ryan, which is a part of the Slasher Girls and Monster Boys anthology. So this book is full of like scary stories, but a lot of the settings aren't necessarily scary, it's more what happens in the settings. And In the Forest Dark and Deep is terrifying. And not even so much the forest, but what is in the forest and what's hiding in the forest. It's just so creepy and so dark, and it's the fact that whenever this girl is basically safe until she goes into the forest, and then everything gets really creepy and really weird and awful. I really like forest settings, I find them very creepy. Like I said, I had Cavewater on this list as well. I just found that was the creepiest setting in the book. I just felt so unsettled while reading it, not only because of the characters and just the creepiness of the story itself, but also just because the surroundings and the atmosphere within the setting. Yeah, it was scary. Number 2 is The Auditorium from This Is Where It Ends. Now this setting is very different than the other ones I've mentioned because it doesn't really have anything to do with like supernatural elements or dark mystery or like horror necessarily. The horror comes from it being too real. Now if you've never read it, This Is Where It Ends is a story about a school shooting, which to be honest is probably the scariest book on this list because it's such a real fear for a lot of people. That's something that could totally happen to me. I'm still in school, like that's a fear that is kind of in the back of my mind sometimes, like what if this ever happened? Basically the shooter comes into the school while they're having an assembly and he ends up locking the doors and locking everybody inside of this auditorium while he walks around, and it is the scariest thing. It's scary because everyone's so contained and there's this feeling of helplessness because nobody can get out and they're just stuck in here with this crazy person. And while you're reading it, you feel just as trapped as the characters and just as scared as they are. And that's why it's scary. It's because it could happen to any of us. It could be a reality for anybody. It's not even really the setting itself that's inherently scary. Like, it's just a school auditorium. It's like nothing really scary about that. It's just what happens in the setting and how that setting is used that makes it really terrifying. So yeah, I just found that really creepy, and I still think about that book a lot actually. And my number 1 spooky setting in a book is Tartarus from House of Hades and from, you know, the Heroes of Olympus series. I didn't say spoilers for this one because, you know, I assume at this point most people have read Percy Jackson, and if you haven't read Percy Jackson by this point, then you're probably not gonna read it. So Tartarus is pretty creepy. It's a pretty creepy place to put in a middle grade book. It's literally hell. What's really creepy about it is not just like the scary monsters that live down there and just like the gross creepy atmosphere of it. It's that the whole place is literally the Titan Tartarus embodied. So there's points where they're walking across his skin and there's like his heart or whatever, right? So it's just creepy to picture it as like a body and his flesh and everything like that. And it's also scary to think of 2 like 16, 17-year-olds walking through this. Like everything here can literally kill them. It's terrifying. There's just such a feeling of hopelessness while they're down there too, where everything's just dark and upsetting and there's just like a lot of bad things down there. And I don't know, it didn't really scare me while I was reading it. It's just so unsettling and it's just such a terrible situation. At that moment when Percy and Annabeth drop into Tartarus is so upsetting. And just their entire journey through the place is scary and awful, and I just, oh, you feel bad for them the entire time. Yeah, this is one of the creepiest places I've read in a book. You can't get worse than like literal hell. So those are some of the creepy settings that I like in books. Let me know what some of your favorite spooky settings are. And now I've got an essay to write that I've been putting off all weekend and I should probably just do, but I don't want to. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!